Welcome to the Saphira Center of Shamanism, where we break down the ancient technologies of shamanism and the occult, bring them into balance with the deep psyche. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It's an honor to have you with me. As always, if you have interest in working with me, I have many options that are available that I've left in the links of the description of this video. Check out the first link if you have interest in joining my premium service, the Saphira Shamanic School, a powerful membership program for those who are ready to invest the time and energy into their evolutionary paths using the shamanic and occult sciences. It's an opportunity to work closely with me and gain access to powerful initiatory rituals, various different practices, countless modalities, and many other things. Check out the second link in the description for the Patreon. Amazing opportunity to gain access to potent exclusive content at just a small monthly subscription. And check out the third link for my one-on-one healing and mentoring services. So today we are going to be speaking about the what I feel to be three of the most important beings to really build a strong and close bond with for anybody who is wanting to work with the Draconian current and serpentine initiation seriously. We're going to be discussing the renowned Draconian Trinity, Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu. We're going to be breaking down each of these beings in depth, looking at Mesopotamian mythology, specifically the Enuma Elish, decrypting the symbolism of this mythological story and understanding the unique initiatory potential of these three very powerful beings. This is going to be an extremely important video for anybody who is interested in draconian path working and reconnecting with their primal self and igniting the black flame. I also want to notify you of my newly published e-grimoire, The Rites of the Draconian Trinity. This is a series of advanced initiatory rituals into the currents of Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu, finishing with a full initiation into the Draconian current. This is a very deep and intense endeavor, only for those who are ready to delve deep into full Draconian initiation and commit their lives fully to it. This very powerful path working creates a deep, intimate bond with these extremely powerful beings and really takes them as aspects of you and activates the powers within your nervous system that these beings are resonant with. Not for dabblers, only for those who are ready to interact fully with the Draconian current. Completing this set of rites is going to open you up to a much bigger initiatory process that is going to continue to develop throughout your evolutionary path. The Draconian current is an ongoing initiatory process, only for those who are ready to commit fully to their path of deifying themselves. But for now, stay tuned as we delve into the Draconian Trinity, Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu. So Draconian initiation is one of the most powerful and aggressive forms of initiation that you can go through. Within this current lie many different beings, many different serpentine intelligences that you can build a relationship with in order to aid your ascent back to the realm of the true gods. This is what Draconian means. Draconian basically means who you were before. The primal essence represents almost like a reptilian-like consciousness that represents who you were before all of the conditioning. We all have a reptilian aspect of our brain, which is a primal aspect of ourselves that was there before all of the conditioning and the learnt behavioral patterns. The Draconian path is a journey of unmaking, of returning you back to the primal essence that represents who you were before all of the conditioning. If you've ever heard of the concept of a Draconian astrology chart, which is only something that I've only really heard about quite recently via my partner, The Draconian astrology chart shows who you were before the conditioning, basically who you were before you received all of the conditioning and inherited all of the personas, masks, and roles that society has given you. So this basically means that Draconian initiation is a process of moving back to that primal essence and learning how to navigate it. It's not a path that is for everybody. It's not one of those initiatory systems like the angelic current, which is open to realistically anybody who wants to interact with it. The Draconian current has specific requirements and specific sacrifices that must be made. Once you open the door to the Draconian current, you can't go back. It is a kind of blue pill, red pill like situation if we refer to the Matrix. You start interacting properly with the Draconian current and it starts flowing through you. The current will start to carry you back to your primal essence and will start to carry you on a very powerful process of deconstruction and basically full identity and social reset. So it is basically like a path that can be seen as exiting the matrix or the predefined multiverse on the microcosmic level, on the individual level. When that current starts to flow through you, you will start to go through immense alchemical transformation, immense transformation that you are not going to necessarily understand fully. And if anybody who is on the Draconian path, no matter how far along they've gone, says that they understand the path fully, then I would question the authenticity that is behind that. This is not a path of becoming. It's a path of unmaking. People want to go into these currents of energy because they want to be seen as somebody who is working with big, intense forces. But the Draconian current doesn't really allow that. The Draconian current is one of unmaking yourself to the point where you are embodying a fluid consciousness that supports your continuous evolution. The Draconian current is linked to the primal essence, which is linked to the Kundalini energy, the serpentine structure that sits dormant at the base of the spine. The serpent is symbolic of knowledge and symbolic of shedding the outdated personas that needed to be shed in order to move one back to their godhood. People think that activating the Kundalini is going to give them lots of powerful metaphysical abilities, but realistically what it's going to do first is that it's going to basically ignite a flame, which can be seen, if you look at it in satanic terms or clifothic terms, as the black flame. What the Kundalini will do when it's activated via the Draconian current or via any real way of activating the Kundalini is that it will cause a sort of ripple through your nervous system. It will start to burn through repressed trauma. The Kundalini energy is directly linked to the black flame, directly linked to the fire energy of passion, and will start to radiate throughout the nervous system, burning through crystallized emotions that are stuck within the nervous system. And it will basically take one on a deep process of evolution that they may not necessarily be prepared for. This is how Kundalini syndrome can develop. Okay, what people call Kundalini syndrome, which is where somebody experiences negative side effects in association with activating portions of their Kundalini energy. But what's really happening is that it's activating repressed trauma, repressed power in the nervous system that somebody is not ready to embody or ready to deal with. And it's cultivating symptoms that are basically a mirror of the resistance of the Kundalini fire. So anybody who is claiming to be experiencing negative Kundalini side effects is only really happening because they are resistant to the alchemical process that is taking place. So you have Kundalini activation or Kundalini awakening. Most Kundalini practices do what I call tickling the Kundalini. Okay, there's a modality in the love and light communities which is powerful in its own right called Kundalini activation or CAP. And what that does is that it taps into a cosmic energy, a real cosmic energy, flows it through the system and basically tickles the nervous system. That's what it does. It does not activate your Kundalini. Okay, what it does is that it tickles the nervous system, triggers a type of nervous system reaction, and that's that. Okay, it can induce a powerful healing process, but this is not awakening the Kundalini. When you look at practices such as breath work that are designed to activate portions of the Kundalini energy, again, often this isn't fully sort of it's not fully conscious in the way that it's done. So often Kundalini breath work causes sort of a stimulation of the Kundalini energy and you start to feel it strongly, and it can cause what we call a premature stimulation of serpentine energy. But these practices are very much covered in a lot of love and light and don't really acknowledge the fact that the Kundalini is a primal dark matter intelligence. The Kundalini is a primal god. It is your godhood. It is the way back to a reality that is not predefined, a reality that is void in nature. This is the real nature of the Kundalini. So when you have the love and light community saying, activate your Kundalini, go for this Kundalini activation, you are not activating your Kundalini. When you look at the Draconian current, this is one of the, what I feel to be the most direct way that you can interact with the Kundalini energy, because you are literally communicating with your primal self consciously. Whereas you're not seeing the Kundalini as, oh, this external serpent force that causes me to have temporary convulsions on the floor, gain a few visuals, and then that's it. What the Draconian current does is that it actually activates different portions of the nervous system. Different portions of the nervous system that cause the serpentine energy to flow freely through you. What it does is that it opens a portal. It uncoils the serpentine structure that sits dormant at the base of the spine, and it causes it to kind of open up like a flower. Okay, it expands through the nervous system. The dark lotus that represents the black flame starts to ignite within the nervous system, starts to flow through the entire system and take one on a deep process of primal evolution. So it is the most intense way that you can work with your Kundalini energy, is the Draconian current. So within this current of energy, as I've mentioned, there are numerous serpentine intelligences that you can interact with, and there are sort of crossovers between the Draconian deities and what you would call the Cliffothic deities. They are in many ways very similar things, but there are different aspects of different beings. So for example, in the Cliffoth you have Lilith, primary guide within the Cliffothic realms, who also has Draconian aspects. Same with Belial, same with Lucifer. These types of beings do operate from a Draconian-like intelligence. The Cliffothic path and the Draconian path are directly linked. So initiating yourself into the Draconian current and working with the serpentine intelligences will most likely lead to Cliffothic initiation if it hasn't already. And Cliffothic initiation works in depth with the Kundalini energy because you are gradually opening up the different centers that are within your nervous system, activating the repressed trauma that is within your nervous system, within each center, within each sphere, and then taking yourself on a powerful process of transmutation. So the Draconian current is directly linked to beings that can be seen as Cliffothic in nature. And what many people find is that when they start working properly with primordial dragons and they start working properly with full transmission of the Draconian energies and working with their primal self, it is not unusual for them to then be guided towards the Cliffothic realms. That's certainly what happened with me. Started interacting with the Draconian current very shortly after I was starting my Cliffothic initiation. Okay, so for those who don't know what the Cliffoth is, I've made lots of videos on the Cliffoth. Definitely check those out. I'm not going to be talking about the Cliffoth specifically in this video, but the specific dragons that we're going to be speaking about are Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu, which are some of the most important beings within this particular current of energy. So in order to understand them, we need to look at the Mesopotamian myth of creation and then find a correlation between this myth and the process of initiation that the Draconian current demands from you. So it all comes back to the fact that we all come from the void, we all come from dark matter energy, we all come from pure potential. Within the void, there is nothing but the expressions of creation and destruction in their rawest form, the primal essence of creation, which are the dragons. The dragons are the primal deities that existed before everything. There are many primordial dragons, not just Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu. You've also got Apep. You've also got Leviathan. You've also got many others. The Spider Queen, Arachne, can also fall under a Draconian deity, but is a slightly different current to the dragon current that is brought by Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu. So the Mesopotamian myth is that initially there was nothing, pure void, pure potential. Within this void dwelled two currents of the primordial waters. The primordial chaos is often viewed as an infinite dark water energy, symbolizing the deep unconscious. Within these primordial waters dwelled two very powerful beings that in their sexual union gave birth to the first realm of gods. This was Absu, the being of fresh water and stillness, and Tiamat, the mother of the cosmos. Tiamat and Absu can be seen as two forces that balance each other perfectly. Tiamat representing that pure, aggressive, maternal, but sort of very potent initiatory feminine energy that is seen to very much give birth to the entire cosmos. You then have Absu, which is seen as a slightly more masculine force, but an expression of the still energies of the void. So Tiamat is seen as a saltwater dragon, whilst Absu is seen as a freshwater dragon. Together in their sexual union, they give birth to the first realm of gods. Some of these gods you may recognize. Enki is a key name. I'm not going to go into the gods here. I'm just going to, very much give an overview. Some of the gods are Enki. Enki's son is then Marduk, who is quite a famous Mesopotamian deity. So they gave birth to these first realms of gods, what many refer to as the beings that existed before the Anunnaki. So this first realm of gods, the gods of order, basically represent the first sort of birthing point of order within the cosmos, basically cultivating light matter form within the pre-existing dark matter void. So Tiamat and Absu represent the birthing of creation, the birthing of light matter and order from the depths of the void. So these gods continue to evolve, continue to develop, and started to expand order in a way that was disruptive to the flow of primordial energy. So the symbolism behind this is very much going to be how false order can start to disrupt the natural flow of nature, the primordial and primal flow of nature and continuous evolution. The story goes, symbolically, the gods are becoming more and more loud, and Absu gets increasingly frustrated by how loud the gods are being, disturbing his peaceful sleep within the depths of the void. So he plots an attack. He plots an attack on the realm of gods, on order, in order to restore the primordial chaos to its original state. Tiamat sees that Absu is going to do this and actually respects the gods that she gave birth to and wants them to evolve in their own way, showing the maternal love of Tiamat. So basically what she does is that she puts Absu into a deep, long sleep to prevent him from launching the attack. Enki, however, the father of the famous Marduk, who is famous for destroying Tiamat, but we will get to that in a moment. Enki, however, sees the threat within Absu and actually betrays his father by killing Absu in his sleep. This represents the betrayal that took place towards the primordial chaos. What this is basically representative of is humanity's false order that betrays the natural flow of the primal essence. You could even interpret this to the development of patriarchal religious systems that causes us to actually betray the serpent, betray the primal essence, and place divinity outside of the self. But that is just quite a stretch when it comes to this interpretation. But it could be interpreted in that way. So Enki betrays the primordial dragons, kills Absu in his sleep to ensure the safety of order in the universe. Tiamat then becomes enraged, feels betrayed by the gods that she gave birth to, so then builds an army of monsters and dragons and launches an attack on the gods of order. So basically, a huge battle takes place. This is what we call the Enuma Elish, the myth of creation within Mesopotamian mythology, the infamous battle between order and chaos. Tiamat also appoints a new consort, and this is Kingu. Kingu seen as the force of rebellion. Tiamat also gifts Kingu the Tablet of Destinies, which is later stolen by Marduk when he kills Kingu. So Marduk is seen as the chosen one, the chosen god of order that is appointed to extinguish the primordial chaos through killing Kingu and Tiamat. So he starts by battling Kingu, kills Kingu, and uses the blood of Kingu to cultivate humanity. This is symbolic of humanity's connection to the primordial chaos. In Mesopotamian mythology, it is said that we hold the rebellious primordial blood of Kingu within our system, and that represents our way back to the primordial chaos that birthed everything. So we all have Kingu very firmly within us. Marduk then battles Tiamat, and then beats Tiamat, severs her body, uses the top half of her body to cultivate the heavens, uses the bottom half of the body to cultivate the earth. This is symbolic of the first victory of order within the cosmos. So what is the real symbolism behind this story? The real symbolism is the fact that the dragons represent the rage and anger that is built towards what is false, that is built towards forces that are trying to disturb the natural flow of nature. So if we translate to this, you can see that because Tiamat had love for the realm of gods, she wanted them to do what they needed to do. But when she experienced the betrayal and the killing of Absu, she became enraged. So this basically means that she wants you to exist within a physical body and to ultimately shape the reality around you, but she is aggressive towards what is false. So when you interact with Tiamat, Tiamat will dissolve the illusions of what you're holding on to, things that are separating you from your true creative potential. So you can basically see Tiamat as being this kind of map of the matrix in a way, the map of everything that you see around you. Everything that you see around you basically holds the essence of the dragon Tiamat. Absu represents the place that we were birthed from, the stillness and the void, and Kingu represents the blood of rebellion that is stored within our system, within our spirit. So basically, we hold these three essences within us individually. What this mythological story really symbolizes is basically the reclamation of sovereignty, and the dissolving of what is illusionary, but also not rejecting order altogether. As I said, Tiamat's love for the realm of the gods of order basically symbolizes the fact that the primordial chaos does not want to destroy all order, because it acknowledges the fact that light is needed to bring meaning to the dark. But where it becomes a problem is when the order becomes false, it becomes restrictive to the natural flow of nature, and Absu represents the primordial desire to sort of reclaim sort of nature's natural flow. So if we look at this from our evolutionary path, you can see that interacting with the primordial dragons of Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu is a way of basically returning yourself to everything that the draconian current represents, returning yourself to primordial chaos whilst within a physical body, not neglecting order, understanding that light and order is absolutely necessary to be able to function, but also the fact that you need to shatter what is illusionary in order for you to continue to flow in harmony with nature's natural flow. So you can interpret the Enuma Elish in many different ways. Some people interpret this story of creation as a symbol, a kind of symbol of humanity's desire to disrupt and control nature. People see Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu as destructive forces that represent the sort of primordial flow of nature that is sort of angry with humanity for its negligence of their true power and potential, and their negligence of the importance of nature and the consistent flow that nature goes in. It's very much symbolic of humanity's detachment from the natural flow of death and rebirth. The fact is that the gods became too comfortable in their order. They became too comfortable and started to sort of apply more and more restrictions on the primordial chaos, which is symbolic of the fact that if you cling on to false order and you cling on to false ideas of righteousness and false ideas of knowing, it basically means that you are going to be restricting your own evolution and restricting realistically your way back to where it is that you actually came from, which is the primordial chaos. It's also associated with humanity's need to avoid chaos altogether, despite the fact that it is a destructive force. It's very easy when you're interacting with any form of spirituality to become overly dualistic in nature. Many left-hand path practitioners who work more with dark matter energy become overly dualistic. So they neglect all kind of light practices in order to embody their sort of darker practices. And it's the same for what you could call right-hand path, which is the majority of the New Age spiritual community that are operating from a more patriarchal system and belief and set of beliefs. So it's like what the Enuma Elish really shows you is that both are needed. You need both order and chaos to be able to function effectively. If you become like the first realm of gods and become too comfortable in your state of false light or order, then chaos is going to have to unfold in order to return you to the source, return you to the primordial chaos that birthed everything into existence. Whereas if you're only dwelling within chaos, then you're going through continuous death, but are not actually embracing the rebirth that needs to come from that. So it's basically showing you that you need to flow in accordance with nature's natural flow. Flow between death and rebirth states of consciousness, flow between stages of initiation whereby you are shedding who you were and then growing into who you were meant to be, and then shedding who you were, then growing into who you were meant to be. It's basically symbolic of that continuous cycle of death and rebirth. So let's have a look at the spirits individually. So we start by looking at Tiamat. I'm going to read a snippet from my Draconian pathworking, the rites of the Draconian Trinity. So Tiamat, the dragon mother, the womb of all chaos. Tiamat is the great saltwater dragon of Mesopotamian myth, whose body and essence contains the matrix of all things. So this is symbolic of how everything around you is the essence of Tiamat. Going back to the Enuma Elish, Marduk severs the body of Tiamat, uses her top half to develop the heavens and the bottom half to develop the earth. That's very much shown within what I just said. She contains the matrix of all things. In the Enuma Elish, she births the first generation of gods. In her wrath, creates legions of serpents and monsters to destroy those who have betrayed her. Her essence is primordial, feminine, and boundless. So if you translate that to your evolutionary path, she brings a level of formlessness, shattering the illusions of form, shattering the illusions of knowing in general, to return you to her union. You are making the commitment with Tiamat to return to serpent-born consciousness. You are communicating with your primordial mother when you are working with Tiamat. So she has basically unregulated love for you, but very much shows that love often in quite a tough way by really showing you what your sovereignty really is and pushing you into a place where you have to carry the responsibility of being a sovereign being. As an initiatory force, Tiamat awakens the Kundalini, opens the gates of creative and destructive chaos, and draws the initiate back to the womb of origin. She is very much focused not around any form of comfort, okay? So taking you back to your source, taking you through a process of being remade, not becoming, but unmaking, in order to then be remade stronger, more resilient, and more aligned to who you were before the conditioning. Goes back to what Draconian means. Draconian is basically linking back to the serpentine intelligences that represent who you were before your conditioned reality. Okay. Her fire births monsters, gods, and awakens souls alike. So she brings a level of self-deification just by invoking Tiamat. Just by invoking Tiamat, I feel, does induce a very powerful process of self-deification, whereby you are actually learning how to embody her feminine force to birth things into being. So the gods, awakened souls, monsters is very much symbolic of the different expressions of yourself that you can birth into being as a result of connecting with Tiamat. So taking you back to that sort of that primal essence whereby you are in touch with your ability to birth things into existence. Her rites are filled with serpentine symbolism and wisdom, elemental fire, and deep water current. The deep water current is symbolic of the deep unconscious. So when you're interacting with a dark feminine force like Tiamat, you are going to go through a significant dissolving process. So she brings a lot of trauma to the surface because she interacts so closely with the Kundalini energy, working with her regularly, and especially doing the rites within my rites of Draconian initiation, the rites of the Draconian Trinity, is going to cause a big surge in Kundalini. And as I mentioned, the Kundalini energy ignites the black flame, which burns through the repressed trauma that's in the nervous system. So to face Tiamat is to face your repressed trauma in its rawest and most primordial form. She is the mother who does not coddle, but devours weakness and forges sovereignty through fire. So very much, taking responsibility for your own sovereignty. Tiamat requires you to take accountability for yourself, own your limitations, own your mistakes, and ultimately make the commitment to grow. She will shatter lies that you've created, lies that you've told yourself, and show you what you are beyond those lies. Okay. Extremely powerful being, extremely powerful. She often appears as a dragon with 5 heads. The 5 heads are symbolic of all of the elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and ether, all contained into one being, which makes sense because her body was used to cultivate in Mesopotamian mythology, was used to cultivate everything that you see around you. Okay, so everything around you holds your way back to primordial chaos. Everything around you holds your way back to the primordial dragon that is represented by Tiamat. So the fact that Tiamat represents the matrix of everything around you, it basically means that everything around you can be used as a portal back to your primordial self. The thing is that most people do not want to take ownership of their own godhood and find it easier to relax into the falsehood that comes with false light and order and patriarchy. Tiamat devours those illusions savagely and shows you who you are beneath it. Okay. Kingu, extremely powerful being, the rebel flame, blood of the gods. Kingu is Tiamat's chosen champion and consort after the death of her mate Absu. He is appointed to wear the Tablet of Destinies and lead her army against the younger gods. So again, if he's responsible for leading an army, you can see how Absu really has an extremely strong sort of rebellious energy. I also found that when developing a relationship with, sorry, I meant to say Kingu, that when developing a relationship with Kingu, you have to, what I've definitely found is that he likes quite sort of material offerings. When I say material offerings, I mean actual sort of talismans or a symbolic talisman to actually, place the essence into, because he was given the Tablet of Destinies and he was given sort of a whole army to lead. This basically means that this may translate to your own personal process with Kingu. That Kingu will ultimately, want to have a place within your life and often may actually want a symbolic sort of artifact. I mean, for me, his essence was placed with blood and pure energy and intent into a dagger with a ruby in it. And the ruby is symbolic of the blood. And obviously the dagger is symbolic of the warrior energy. So because Kingu was given his army, he often, I feel, requires a vessel for his energy, and it's what I've seen with other people as well. But it may not be the case with you. It depends how you're using the energy. For me, when it came to actually channeling rites and consecrating the energies, flowing it through me, he did require me to have a type of talisman and require me to actually give him something as a vessel to keep on the altar. So really beautiful connection, really. So the fact that Kingu leads entire armies to fight the gods of order, it shows that he has an extremely rebellious energy and very much is contained within us. So Kingu basically represents that primal force within you that wants to walk a path of its own, that does not want to walk the same path that everybody else has walked, which is symbolic of him leading the army, okay, leading the primordial armies to reclaim sovereignty within the cosmos is what Kingu is really about. Very bloodthirsty being, extremely aggressive, not necessarily for beginners, okay. After his defeat by Marduk, his blood is used to create humanity, an act that simultaneously sacrifices and immortalizes him. So Kingu is symbolic of sacrifice. Again, because he gave his sacrifice, that was likely why, for me and what I've seen with other people, he required a type of sacrifice to be able to hold his vessel within. He kind of looks for that reciprocity, I feel, because he sacrificed himself to keep sort of humanity's connection to the primordial chaos, sacrificed himself in order for his blood to be used within the body of humanity. So this is often why he does require a sacrifice if you build a relationship with him, a sacrifice of something bigger. It's important to understand that because he was slain, and because his blood runs through all of us, he is immortal. He cannot be destroyed because his blood is flowing through all of us. So when we are actually making the conscious decision to forge our own path, free from the construct of the external world, we are somewhat embodying Kingu's current of energy automatically. In this path, Kingu represents rebellion, divine will, and sacred rage. He awakens the black flame within the initiate and teaches the path of spiritual warriorship. So a lot about retrieving the warrior energy does Kingu bring. He does very much, he's very much about understanding what your true will really is, igniting the black flame, which is obviously a way back to yourself, and understanding who you are beneath all of the masks. The warrior energy is also greatly misinterpreted. As much as he is a warrior and a rebel, the warrior energy doesn't mean being aggressive with yourself necessarily. What it means is ultimately being willing to face the truth about yourself. That is the ultimate warrior energy. It's not defined by the outer layer. The fact that Kingu's blood runs through all of us shows that our source is that warrior energy, and that warrior energy lives within the desire to return to truth, not just live within a reality of predefined truth that has been given to you by an external divinity. Through Kingu, one learns to cut through illusion, refuse obedience to false systems, and stand crowned in one's own name. So cutting through thought forms, he's very good, I feel, for like exorcism work as well. Again, it's a double-edged sword when you approach it in that way, but exorcism in the sense of like, you know, removing toxic thought forms, removing stagnation from the system, obviously works intensely with the black flame, you know, and is very much for breaking through resistance and breaking through false order. So what you'll find is that Kingu will have an extremely aggressive current of energy that will literally burn through stagnation within your own nervous system. Okay. Crowned in one's sacred name, which is the crowning of who you were before everything, the crowning of who you were before the conditioning. Again, draconian in nature. Okay. His initiatory power is that of sacred adversary, the one who bears the weight of rebellion not as sin, but as sacrament. Okay, so rebellion is seen as a sin. Rebellion is seen as something that is to be dreaded. From the moment of coming into this physical body, the biggest aspect of development that represents our separation from primal consciousness is adolescence. And the classic teenage rebellion is completely shamed and refused. It's a well-known fact that if somebody does not embrace teenage rebellion, it's not unusual that they will then go forward in their day-to-day lives and basically move into dynamics whereby they are looking for a leader, or they're looking for power struggle unconsciously because it's what's familiar. So I feel that working with Kingu does actually heal the inner adolescent. And the inner adolescent is the biggest aspect of self-development, I feel, that is completely rejected. I encourage you to feel into your adolescent self. Think of your adolescent self now and be honest with yourself in terms of the first thought that comes to mind. Many people, it's a cringe. Oh God, no. Oh, what was I like back then? Kingu is a very direct representation of our relationship to our adolescent self, because the adolescent is the aspect of us that is responsible for us finding our power. So if we rebelled as adolescents and it was shamed, then it may cause that rebellion to be seen as a sin and cause our own power emergence to be repressed. Whereas if somebody does not rebel at all as a teenager, then it's not unusual that the same thing is then going to happen by completely repressing power and entering into dynamics whereby they are overpowered by an external force. Okay, so the sacred adversary bears the weight of rebellion as a sacrament, acknowledging that rebellion is essential in your evolutionary path, shattering the illusions of righteousness and understanding that in order for you to find yourself, you need to rebel against the rules that were placed upon you. It doesn't mean going out and doing and committing loads of crimes. It doesn't mean going out and hurting people. What it means is actually taking the steps to liberate yourself from false order and false light, liberate yourself from projected belief systems that you are still carrying without even realizing it. So Kingu has an extremely potent energy for helping you to understand sacred rebellion. He breaks chains, severs oaths to false light, and burns away inertia. Okay, so burns away dissociation, basically. Kingu does not deal with dissociation. He doesn't, when I say deal with it, he doesn't tolerate it. He doesn't tolerate dissociation. By default, we are wired to dissociate from what is uncomfortable. Working with Kingu will not tolerate that. It will awaken the dormant aspects of your system through the awakening of the black flame. So Kingu does bring a very dissolving energy, but in a way that is quite aggressive and may come as a surprise to those who interact with him if they are not used to working with forces that are so extremely chaotic. Okay, we're working with forces when we look at the primordial dragons that are older, I feel, than a lot of the daemonic spirits, so older than a lot of the Cliffothic deities or the deities that might appear in the Cliffoth. And are very much timeless in nature. So Kingu really represents that sacred rebellion and the dissolving of dissociation so that you can ultimately sensitize your nervous system and become more open and vulnerable with yourself. This is real warrior energy. Absu. So when I talk about Absu, you can really see that they bring each other into balance. Okay, Tiamat brings the fierce maternal energy, Kingu brings the rebellion, and Absu brings the silence and stillness. Perfectly balanced. Absu can have quite a intimidating energy in the sense that he doesn't really present himself in a tangible way. He is quite gentle compared to Tiamat and Absu because he is basically an expression of the silence of the void. You can see Tiamat, Kingu, and Absu as different expressions of the void itself, different ways that the primordial chaos can manifest and show up. Absu represents that pure silence, which means that it's not tangible in nature. Quite similar, I feel, to the energies of the Da'ath in the Qliphoth. Quite silent, intangible, but quietly transformative. So Absu, the silent deep, the void before the world. Absu or Apsu is the primordial freshwater deep, the masculine polarity to Tiamat's saltwater sea. So naturally he has a more emanating quality than Tiamat, whereas Tiamat is more vampiric in nature. He represents the void of stillness before form, the breath before sound, and the potential that predates all of creation. So to work with him is working with an avatar of the essence that existed before everything. To work with him is to work with the essence of the void that existed before everything. This is why he is extremely intangible, but as I said, quietly transformative. You go through deep alchemy when you work with Absu, but in a way that you can't really see or perceive or reach out and touch, whereas Tiamat and Kingu are far more tangible in the ways that they actually feel in terms of energy. Okay, you can feel them a lot in the body, particularly Kingu, you can feel him a lot in the body. Absu is very much formless, completely formless in nature. You can't really reach out and touch the energy like you can with Tiamat and Kingu. In myth, Absu is killed by the gods, specifically killed by Enki for plotting their destruction. But his essence remains, the eternal deep beneath everything. So it shows you that despite the fact that he was slain and killed in the mythology, you cannot kill the void. Okay, and this basically is a very important step for understanding your own sovereignty. If you merge with the void, you will acknowledge that you are a timeless being, and you will acknowledge the fact that your sovereignty is far more valuable than anything else. Your sovereignty in relation to the void shows you the paradox of creation. You can go through death after death after death, but because you come from the void, you can never be destroyed. You can never be destroyed because you come from the void. The black flame links you back to the void. So the fact that Absu was slain and killed, but his essence still lives on, is purely because you cannot kill the void. You cannot kill what is already nothing. And Absu was already nothing. He represents the silence before everything. He represents the nothingness but the everything at the same time. So it means that you embody Absu's current. He shows you your sovereignty, shows you that you cannot be destroyed by anything because you are the void. When you go through the Qliphothic abyss, it creates a merging with the void itself. So in a sense, you become a type of avatar of the void, and that I feel creates quite a deep, intimate connection with the primordial dragons automatically, particularly with Absu, because you're basically connecting to his raw essence. As an initiator, Absu is stillness, silence, and obliteration. He strips away identity, thought, and form, not to destroy your true essence, but to destroy what is illusionary. So as I said, very similar sort of essence to Corondon and the Cliffothic Abyss. He is a personification of the void consciousness. So I feel Corondon or Shugal Corondon and Absu do sort of go hand in hand in the initiatory process. With the Da'ath, it's a slow dissolving process in ways that you can't really tangibly see or understand what's going on. It's the same with Absu, so very intangible in nature. So as an initiator, Absu is stillness, silence, and obliteration. He strips away identity, thought, and form to make way for truth. The same as the Cliffothic Abyss. Okay, strips you to then be filled with new energy when you enter the higher levels of creation. Through Absu, the initiate learns to become nothing, so they may become everything. As I said, if you are nothing, you can't be destroyed. If you're nothing, nothing can defeat you. No ailment, no challenge, nothing can destroy you when you embody the void. He is the gatekeeper of trance, the guardian of the formless, and the whisperer from the abyss. In his rites, all distractions are stilled, and the initiate sinks into the unbound dark and encountering truth beyond language. Okay, so extremely intangible energy in nature. Okay, but is extremely dissolving. You're sort of embodying that formless space, which your soul does recognize on some level. It's the same for all of the draconian energies. Your soul recognizes your primal self because it's where it's come from. But your ego does not recognize that state. Your ego is not going to recognize the void consciousness that is brought by Absu. So this is why Absu's energy can have an extremely dissolving effect and can actually feel quite uncomfortable, but in a way that you can't really define. It only feels uncomfortable for the ego because it's stripping away the illusion that you are actually something tangible and is showing you what you are beneath all of that. So as I said, does hold parallels to the transformation that takes place within the Cliffothic Abyss. So Tiamat brings the tough love, the maternal energy, the dissolving energy that is designed to return you back to godhood. Her essence dwells within everything and shows you that everything represents your way back to your primordial self. But you can choose to ignore it and stay in false light, or choose to deify yourself. She is an expression of that deification, that pure receiver energy that conceives and then births into being. Tiamat, extremely powerful, extremely aggressive. Kingu embodies the sacred rebel, the rebellion against all false order, the rebellion against the predefined masks and roles, and shows you how to embrace that rebellion as a necessary step of transformation. Very fiery, burns through stagnation that's within your nervous system, releases dissociation, and sensitizes your nervous system so that you can become more open and vulnerable. Absu is the silent freshwater spirit, the unaltered void consciousness. Because he is the fresh water that is not yet altered, he represents that silence before everything and will return you to that silence, help you to acknowledge that you are the void, and when you are the void, you are everything and nothing at the same time. Extremely comforting energy for the inner child, because in the void, your inner child doesn't have to be anything anymore. It just has to look at and acknowledge its own value and see its sovereignty as one with the void. You're one with the void. Nothing will defeat you because you are already nothing. And when you're nothing, you are pure potential. The ability to give birth to a whole new reality that is actually a reality that you choose. This is the purpose of the primordial chaos. This is the purpose of the draconian current, to actually shed what you have already been given and not chosen, and actually forge your path in a way that is aligned to your true will, in a way that is fluid, in a way that supports void consciousness, and in a way that you are actually following your own heart, forging your own path with your heart, and not walking down the same path that so many people have walked down, doing things in your own way, finding your own thing, finding your own sovereignty and embodying it in this physical body, not neglecting the need for order, not neglecting the need for light, but embodying that continuous cycle of death and rebirth that the serpent goes through, the continuous cycle of order into chaos, of chaos into order that needs to take place in order to continue to grow and evolve. So epic spirits, very important to work with. Definitely check out my Rites of the Draconian Trinity if you have interest in walking this path. You can also gain access to it for free by joining my self-deification tier on the premium membership, the Saphira Shamanic School. First link in the description. Check out the other links if you have interest in working with me in other ways. But for now, thank you guys. If this video was helpful to you, hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.